What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, how you doing this summer?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's finally starts to feel a little bit like summer, right? A little bit of off season. The finals going 7 games and then leading right into free agency, the draft, and summer league, man. It just was one continuously long season, but it was great. It was an exciting year, and we've hit the off season now.
Yeah, we hit the off season. It won't last for too long. It's basically 1 month where nothing happens, because in a month, Legs, we have Eurobasket, which I don't know how much you get into these. We're obviously going to be covering them this year, but you know, there's some good players that'll be playing in Eurobasket this year. It's always a competitive one because it's just the European. There's more teams in. There's more European teams that can that play. So there's a lot of like good teams. Obviously, no Team USA, but I get excited for that. It like will break up the summer to give us some competitive basketball in the month of August and September.
Yeah, well, like, I love it when there's something going on like that time of the year to just give us more interesting topics, because it's not the easiest thing in the world all the time when you get that deep into the summer. But when you have the Olympics or you have something like Eurobasket, you have something like that to talk about, interesting players to talk about, it makes it a little bit easier for us. And it's fun to have, because we're basketball junkies, man. So we want to see competitive hoops, you know, as much as we can throughout the year. So you might be watching it differently. Maybe you've got, you know, a mocktail in your hand or something, or you're under a beach umbrella, but you're going to be watching, as will I.
There you go, man. On today's show, we're going to have a quick one for you because there were 2 moves that were pretty interesting and have happened since the last time we've recorded. Marcus Smart signed with the LA Lakers. They desperately need players. He's one. The fit's interesting. We're going to talk about it and how much it helps the Lakers in their quest this season. But we're going to start with the Clippers, who last week we talked about Bradley Beal joining the team and what a big deal that was. You know, obviously giving them some depth, giving them another dynamic scorer. But now they reunite with Chris Paul. Chris Paul's played a lot of places. New Orleans Hornets, you know, he played for quite a while, but I think he is known most as a Clipper in the time he had there with Lob City. This will be the last year of his career. He stated this is his farewell tour, and he's joining a Clippers team full of veteran players. What's your first thought when you saw that he'd be signing there? Not a mystery. We kind of knew it was coming, but what was your first thought when you saw it?
Well, I think first is just, you know, these guys that have these incredible careers and they last as long as they do, at the end, you kind of get to handpick where you want to finish up. And that's what he was able to do. So you're happy for the player because, you know, we all have those places that we play in our careers that mean the most to us. And clearly this is something that's really important. And not just the franchise, but the city. It sounds like he wants to be back there. So you look at Chris Paul now, and at this stage of his career, the question that remains is what impact is he going to have as a player? He stayed healthy last year for the most part. So you expect him to be healthy. What's the role going to be? I mean, they already mentioned that he's coming in obviously expecting to be a backup. You've got James Harden there, you got Bradley Beal there. You know, maybe there's going to be some minutes he plays with Harden, but for the most part, he's coming in a reserve role. And I think, Adam, if there's any role for him down the stretch, which I think you look at this team on paper right now, I mean, you have to list them as a team that is highly relevant in the Western Conference, if not like a contender in the Western Conference, based on the year they had a year ago and what they've added. So the question is, what can you do to preserve him as long as you can? So if you are in that position come April 15th, he can have an impact for a couple of months and stay healthy, which has been a problem for him in the postseason recently. He has broken down when they've gotten to that part of the year. So that's obviously going to be the priority for them. Get what you can out of him in the regular season, but really the focus is going to be on helping them, you know, from basically March through June. That's really what they're going to be focused on. and I'm curious to see, how much he gives them in the regular season. I think the guy can still play, especially if you limit his minutes and he's in a very restricted role. I think Chris Paul can certainly help you with his high IQ and the amount of playoff experience he has.
There's no question he can help. And, he played 82 games last year, which is impressive. The oldest guy to go 82, the full 82. But to your point, this is a different beast now, as you're not talking about a team that, hey, if we make the playoffs first round would be great. You're talking about a team that it feels like in many ways a last-ditch effort to try to get over the hump with this old group of guys. And Chris Paul, I think, still can be a very dynamic player. But here's what's interesting. When they announced this trade and they did their media availabilities, they kept saying he's going to come off the bench for us, which I think it's kind of obvious when you just look at their roster. They have James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard. But it's always interesting to me when you get out in front of that as like, hey, no, this is he's a bench guy. Everybody be clear. He's not coming here to start with something he has done and was very important to him for the last handful of years. He wanted a starting role. That they came out and were like, we're getting ahead of this. He is in no way a starter. He is a bench guy. Do you find that as interesting as I do?
Yeah, I do find that pretty fascinating as well. I think he's looking at this in a way, like obviously he didn't want to just go to the Clippers. If the Clippers were a 25-win team last year, I don't know that he'd be dying to get to the Clippers, right? So it's a combination of perfect storm. They have gotten better. They had a very good year. Kawhi Leonard finished the year healthy, so that puts them in a different category going into next season. You're not as worried about that as much. And I think he just wanted to, handpick this situation that he wants to, hey, if I'm going to have one more year in the league, I want it to be with a team that's going to play really important games, no matter what the role is. So obviously they had a conversation when this first came up, and he understood the dynamic. Just look at the depth chart. Where does Chris Paul fit into it? And I think it's going to be interesting, Adam, is to the extent to which he impacts their team in the regular season is going to, I think, leave an open book for what his role will be in the postseason. It might not be the same as it is in the regular season because of who he is, man, and what he's done and as much playoff experience as he has. So it'll be interesting to watch, man. Look, the Clippers, it's funny how this just became this destination for people now. They're trying to load up and make a real run at it next year. And I think, look, with what they've done, I don't think how you can dismiss it. I don't know who the second best team necessarily is in the Western Conference. I know who the best team is. I don't know who the second best team is. The Clippers have made a really strong argument with what they've done that it could be them.
So that you kind of touched on what's interesting to me, because I think it is obvious, that you have so much talent in their backcourt that it's obvious, yes, he could come off the bench and be your lead ball handler with your second unit. But it does raise the question of, in a playoffs, though, can you get into a moment where actually Chris Paul is a better option? James Harden, I think it would be hard to imagine Chris Paul overtaking James Harden, although it is possible that in certain games or matchups or whatever that he's the better option. But Bradley Beal is the one that's interesting to me, because I think he makes more sense next to, if you're saying we're building around James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, that's still the foundation of what this team is. You got Zubats. You have some flexibility about what you could do at power forward. You could go with John Collins. You can go with Derek Jones Jr., Nick Batum, Bogdanovich if you want to play smaller. Bradley Beal's the one guy that I think he fits against most, conceptually off ball. He can score. You give him the ball, he can do some things. But there is a world where Chris Paul would be a better fit to be like, yeah, but he's going to anchor and get the ball where it's supposed to go. So to your point, I think it's important that they came out and said he's a bench guy. But you get into a playoff series, game 5, and it's just matchup dependent. I am curious if this is a situation where Chris Paul could actually be more important and say, actually, he fits better in that spot. And I just wonder if that would be uncomfortable for this team.
That's a great point. I mean, I think that Chris Paul, James Harden as vets will have this sort of relationship that I don't know that it's going to be uncomfortable, but I do think you raise a good point. What if it's one of those nights, man, in a postseason game, and we've seen it from James Harden before, where he just doesn't look right. Ooh. At the beginning of the game. Like, you could just tell through a quarter and a half or a half that James Harden is in that place that he can get to sometimes where he becomes very almost unsure, and he looks like he's losing some aggressiveness. He's not really reading scoring opportunities the same way for whatever reason. It's happened to him in the playoffs. Now you may have another option to go to, like where you go, okay, this isn't just your typical backup point guard we leave on the floor where everybody goes, how could you not play James Harden for 10 straight minutes or 12 straight minutes
Right.
in the second half of a playoff game? Because that's what would happen if it was just a normal backup point guard. That's not who Chris Paul is. So in some ways, like it gives you that option. If that moment arises, it gives you the option to maybe go in a different place. Because I agree with you. Look, Bradley Beal playing alongside James Harden, that could be lethal with his ability to shoot the basketball and as much attention as James Harden commands, particularly when he's playing with a lot of aggressiveness. But what about those nights when he doesn't have that aggressiveness? Because it's not there all the time in the postseason. Now you have another option.
Yeah. And it's tough. And I know I could already read the comments. I could already see what people are going to be typing below on this video of, you think Chris Paul is better than James Harden. It's not that. Sometimes it's difficult, in my opinion, for a team when there is a player can struggle and you have another option. It's almost better sometimes to have this complete separation. We know what the pecking order is, but this is one where more just true point guard play might be the best thing in a certain matchup and in a certain point in a series. And that's just where this could be a little bit strange because your anchors of this team are Kawhi and Harden, and we'll see how it goes. But here's the thing about it. The starting lineup, James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac. Right there, Zubac's great defensive anchor inside. Harden, Beal, Kawhi. Kawhi clearly the best defender, but do you want him guarding the other team's best wing defender every single night? That seems weird. So you pencil in John Collins as your power forward, but I almost wonder if Derek Jones Jr. would be a better option there, just so that Kawhi is not spending the starting and closing of every game guarding the other team's best defender. So do you see what I'm seeing here? That if you're going to play Harden and Beal, you might need to think about Kawhi's defensive rest and assignments with how you staff that power forward starting role.
There's no question. I mean, they've potentially got enough offense now where you go, okay, man, this is a really difficult team to defend, but there's no doubt that's a different look defensively. Norman Powell made a name for himself in this league defensively first. And so you knew, and he fights over screens. He's really good at chasing guys around screens on down pin action. He's just got a lot of effort on that end. And he also had a career year offensively for you. So now you go with a different look. And if you got John Collins out there along with Harden and Beal, Zubac can handle things in the paint as Brook Lopez can. But now what about that other guy defensively? I think that's a very good point that you're making. Now you take a step back offensively. Derek Jones, a lob threat, good in transition, can make an occasional three-point shot. John Collins is a much better offensive player. But if you got Harden out there with Beal, with Collins, that puts a lot of pressure on Kawhi Leonard defensively to guard the guys you're talking about. And you can go up and down these rosters in the Western Conference and talk about who that would mean he's probably got to match up with. That's a different burden to carry in the regular season. So the luxury of having Derek Jones on the floor, having a Dunn on the floor a year ago, even Norman Powell, that did take pressure off Kawhi Leonard. And maybe that's part of the reason when he did come back, he was able to stay back and stay healthy because he could share the burden defensively with who he's guarding. It will be more difficult with the lineup they're going to put out there now.
Yeah. And so now you look at, so that's your top four. Then you have John Collins. Off your bench, Chris Paul, Chris Dunn, Derek Jones Jr., Brook Lopez, Bogdan Bogdanović, Nick Batum. That is the best. I mean, outside of Oklahoma City, that might be the deepest top 11. And I don't know how valuable that is, except for last year, they proved this ability to kind of rest and load manage their guys until late in the year. And it has to be this. That has to be why they went with this route. They know their playoff rotation isn't 11 guys, but regular season, they have enough guys that one or two injuries, one or two load management guys a night, they still have a 9-man rotation that they can, roll out there. And I think that's the entire plan of this. Bogdan Bogdanović and Nick Batum, that's a heck of an 10th and 11th man. Those guys are in almost every rotation in the entire NBA, and they might not play some nights just because if the full roster is healthy, one of those guys probably gets squeezed.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, you could make a really good argument that that's even deeper than Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City had incredible depth, but look at like kind of what they did late in the year, even in the playoffs. Like those guys are a little bit spottier with what they're going to give you, the Wigginses and the Wallaces of the world. I mean, you got guys like you're talking about Bogdanović and Batum at the end of your roster pretty consistent with what you're going to expect out of them if you give them playing time. It's a little bit more it fluctuates a little bit more in OKC. So OKC is generally regarded as the deepest team in the NBA because they did go 10, 11 deep a lot of nights in the regular season. And those guys became household names because of the team's success. But when you talk about just sheer resume and what you've done in the league over the course of your career, that's difficult to match up with what the Clippers can put on paper and who they roll out there. And it also is important with an older team that you've got to have the depth because some of these guys are going to go down. They're going to miss chunks of time. It's almost to be expected from a roster like this. So that's why having more options and having a stable of role players that you can go to is really important for them. And it's just really intriguing, the offseason they've had and the way that you view them now going into the year.
So you sound like you're pretty high on them. I happen to agree with you that I think Oklahoma City, just the defending champs, there's no reason to expect them not to be as good or better than they were last year. So you pencil them in at the top. I put Denver right there. I mean, I've said I'm very high on Denver. They've resolved this Valanciunas issue, so they're going to have the full complement of the players they assembled this offseason. I put them right there. Houston on paper has all the talent in the world. They're going to be great defensively. I think when you get to those three teams, seems like everybody pencils in. I think the Clippers are a team I'm ready to pencil in right behind them. You know, there's contenders. There's other teams that I really like. Minnesota, of course, Golden State. We'll see what they look like. But there's other teams. But to me, the Clippers are firmly now a top 4 team in the West heading into the season.
Totally agree with you, and I'm confident in doing it. I'm not even like hesitating when I write those top 4 names. The reason is because you're right what you said about Houston and Denver. I totally agree. They're right there. When you look at like uncertainty, there's a lot there still with the Lakers. They've got to prove some things. Right? Yeah. The way that their season ended, right? They sort of just went out with a whimper. And I know they'll have a full year now with Luka, and hopefully he comes in and he wants to answer some of the questions about him and all of the conversation that took place after that trade. And now he's got a full season in LA, full season with LeBron, a full season with JJ Redick. Hopefully he comes in ready to set the tone from the beginning. And the Lakers, if that works, that's a very formidable tandem that those two guys present every night. But that's a big question mark, man. I think Minnesota, you look at them and you go, okay, back-to-back conference finals. Can you make the argument they're better? That's a tough argument to make for the Minnesota Timberwolves when you know for a fact Houston and Denver are better, the Clippers are better. I don't know that you can make that argument about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Golden State, I don't know, man. I just don't know how much you can really count on that team with the age of some of their key guys to be there at the end and make a legitimate run through the Western Conference. So there's question marks there. And then you start getting into real question marks with teams like Memphis, Sacramento, Dallas, waiting on Kyrie Irving to come back, and then so on. So, yes, I agree. I feel most confident in the 4 teams that you mentioned. Clearly, Oklahoma City will be at the top. And then Houston, Denver, and the Clippers are the next 3 teams. And there's going to be different order depending on who you're talking to and what kind of argument they're making.
Last one for you. By all accounts, Chris Paul has said this will be his last season. So this will be something of a farewell tour. You know, what do you think of this farewell tour? 20 years in the league, one of the best point guards of all time, pretty iconic player. What do you think some guy's farewell season, it's like a big tour. It's a big deal. How do you think this one will be received? What kind of storyline do you think Chris Paul's final season will be this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a big storyline. It's not going to be on the level of, obviously with some of these other guys make that announcement. You can foresee what it's going to look like when LeBron makes the announcement, when Steph Curry makes the announcement, assuming those guys do it in the off season leading up to their final year. You remember not everybody does that, Adam. Like there's certain guys
it's kind of new.
LeBron's going to do it. I mean, that. Curry, I would expect as well, and I hope so, because I think fans need to understand this is the last chance you're ever going to see Steph Curry, who for me is this is very, subjective. He's the second most entertaining player I've ever watched behind Michael Jordan. And so fans need to know that, man. This is the last time he's coming into that building. So I hope he does. But hey, what if some of these other guys pull a Tim Duncan and they just
out. Yeah.
tweet it out in August. Hey man, it's been great. Thanks. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Chris Paul making the announcement. There's a lot of people that he is beloved by, and there's a lot of young players out there that made him their favorite player, that modeled their game as a point guard after him. So yes, there's going to be a lot of fanfare associated with it, just not probably quite on the level of some of these other all-time iconic players that we're talking about, where the twilight is right around the corner.
What are the most memorable farewell seasons? I think Jordan in 98, the fanfare around that and everything else. You could even make the argument later on with the Wizards that there was a little bit, we all kind of knew it was the last chance, but it was a little different. Kobe for sure to me is the all-time biggest one, just because it was such a big deal. To me, it was the first farewell tour where it was kind of like every city, a little wave to the crowd and everything else. I agree with you that I think Steph's will be the biggest one of all the current players, even more so than LeBron if it were to happen. But are there any others you think of that you remember as being farewell tours?
Man, it feels like, I don't know, Adam. I'm having a hard time just off the top of my head recalling it, because it seems like this is newer.
It
seems like it's newer. Like what's going to happen with this stuff for a lot of reasons. Just the coverage of it is just so much more exhaustive and extensive, and the amount of information you're going to be bombarded with each and every night of it.
Yeah.
It seems like there's nothing's going to compare to it. It's actually hard to even imagine for me right now, thinking about what the league looks like when LeBron and Curry aren't there.
Yeah.
And we always talk about passing that torch to the next guy. It's a lot more than just being a great player.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than that. You got to win, and you've got to be entertaining while doing it, and give you these incredible, indelible moments that you never forget. It's a whole combination of that stuff. And I don't know that it's really easy to just pass that off to somebody else with what these two guys have given us for the last 20 years.
Right. I think you're right. LeBron and Curry are the ones. I think CP3, look, this is a farewell tour. He's one of the all-time great point guards, but I don't know that it's going to be like every city going crazy every time he stops through. So we'll see. But to your point, it is kind of funny to think about which players will have a big one. I think it's Steph Curry for sure. Whenever that year comes, I think it'll be iconic because he is the one guy.
I'm trying to think. Did Kareem have one of those?
I mean, this would be before my time, so I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm thinking, who was the guy? Wasn't it Kareem? I thought it was Kareem. Maybe it was Dr. J that got they were giving out gifts every time he was in an arena for the last time. Literally giving out rocking chairs and fishing gear and the kind of jokey type gifts. You're old now, you're going to retirement. I'm trying to think, who was that? We have to do some research on that. I feel like it was either Kareem or Dr. J that did the farewell tour. And literally they'd bring them out onto the court and present them with gifts and stuff because it was the last appearance he was going to make in that arena.
That's what's so crazy about Kobe's farewell tour is a lot of the teams, hated him. Rivalries against him and everything else. And the farewell tour, every arena was kind of cheering him on as he walked off.
Yeah, you're putting highlight packages on the scoreboard of the guy. He's about to go tune you up. It's the guy needed more adrenaline. Let's give him some.
There you go. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we got to talk about a move the Lakers made. We were referencing him, but Marcus Smart joining the Lakers, who desperately need players. We'll get Legs' thoughts on that on the other side. But first, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. It's the best place to find all your favorite player props, and now you can make the smarter play with the new performance trends. Want to see if a guy's hitting that over consistently, or maybe they've been flirting with a potential triple-double? Get the latest stats right inside the app and see who's heating up. And once the game starts, that's when things get interesting. You can combine live props into the same game parlay for a chance to win big. And if you don't already have FanDuel, it's not too late to get in on the action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. By the way, one of the most fun random sports to bet on is golf, because you could literally bet on each hole. So if you only have 10 minutes to sit and watch a little bit of golf, you put a bet down, you can follow a golfer through that hole and just, bet on par, birdie, whatever it is. That's a really fun way to bet in the offseason of the NBA. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Also want to tell you guys about Shady Rays. You know that moment, the one where you realized you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach or on the roof of your car or at a gas station 3 states away? Well, we've been there too. In fact, just the other day, I saw this. This is a true story. I saw somebody have their camera on top of the car as they were getting ready to pull out of the parking lot. And I stopped the car and I was like, dude, your camera is on top. You're about to lose it. The guy was like lost his breath. But we've all done that. And if you've done it with your sunglasses, the easiest thing to lose, then you got to check out Shady Rays, because the wild part is if you lose or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So now you can wear your sunglasses without fear, take them to the beach, take them on a hike, whatever it is. You don't have to worry about you losing them and being all that money. It really is one of the things that sets Shady Rays apart, that you can get the replacements, just no questions asked. They'll send you a replacement of whatever it is that you've ordered. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code AC35 for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, back here on the All-NBA show with Tim Legler. Legs, the other move that happened here, the Los Angeles Lakers have added Marcus Smart to their roster. They obviously need depth. They're in a bit of a compromised position because they really need more guys. Unlike the Clippers, they're the opposite of the Clippers. They don't have guys that can really spell them. They too have old players like LeBron James on their roster. So they add Marcus Smart. He's kind of an interesting player because he's so valuable at certain things, but he's also kind of a tough guy to project, like to fit into every type of lineup. So is this one of the places you expect Marcus Smart to be a good fit? And what does he bring to the Lakers?
Here's why I like him in this situation more than probably even at times in Boston or Memphis. It's because he's not going to have the ball as much, and I like that. I don't necessarily completely trust Marcus Smart with making great decisions all the time. I think sometimes he blows me away with his offensive confidence. And it's a great thing to have. Good for him. I mean, it's good to be confident. There are times I think he got a little bit outside of himself offensively throughout his career and can hurt you. In this situation, he'll have the ball some, but primarily off the ball. And he's not a great three-point shooter. He's streaky. He can get hot from there, help you. His primary goal in this situation is going to be to take pressure off of Luka Dončić defensively. That's the biggest thing that Marcus Smart is going to do. And that is a luxury now for JJ Redick, that he can be more selective with who Luka guards, protect them a little bit more. And it was obvious, they were almost unaware how much they were going to have to protect Luka defensively when they got him. You could see it. Some of the stuff they were doing in games, it was like almost, and even to LeBron James, it was almost like surprising. Like, I knew that he wasn't a great defender. I didn't know we were going to have to go out of our way to this extent. And really compromise ourselves with extra traffic running at people that Luka's guarding, and the way your defense will get completely imbalanced because you're worried about Luka getting blown by. So now you have the luxury to have certain lineups out there where you could have more defense on the floor to protect Luka. And Marcus Smart won't be, for the most part, your primary decision maker with a live handle. That's fine. He can slash, he can get on the boards, do all the dirty work, fight for loose balls, be an irritant, guard guys, knock down some occasional threes, but not be that guy that you're relying on for large minutes of the game to make great decisions and great reads and not turn the ball over. That's not going to be something that's going to be a big factor for him. So in a lot of ways, you think about Westbrook, and when he was there and he didn't fit because he needed the ball in his hands to really be effective, and he just looked awkward and out of place all the time in LA. When to slash, when to cut. He would get the ball late in the clock from the three-point line, which was obviously not a good shot for him. So this is, I think, a guy that can fit in with a similar style game in terms of the way he defends and the energy he plays with all those things, but he'll fit in better offensively with this group, I think, than Westbrook did, and give you more consistent high level defense against just about anybody. So I like Marcus Smart in this fit and in this situation with the Lakers.
I like it conceptually too. And I think you're right. If you look at their roster, their depth chart, there's not a lot of like plus defenders. Even if you just say plus defenders, not Luka, not Austin Reeves, not Rui, DeAndre Ayton, not really. So you don't have any perimeter containment. You don't have a great rim protector. I think LeBron can be a great defender. Is that what you're asking him to do all year? Is like, hey, just focus on your defense? Probably not. Two-way player, so he'll pick his spots. I think Jared Vanderbilt is a good defender. Jake LaRavia, okay. Marcus Smart to me then becomes not just because I do think he's a tough player. I think offensively what you said about him was almost charitable about his problem is he's too aggressive sometimes. He tries to step outside the lines. He's not a great shooter. So as a softball player, I think there'll be some issues. But defensively, they don't have anybody else that can guard out on the perimeter like that. And so to me, he almost becomes essential despite the fact that he might be a little bit of a clunky fit on offense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And you're right. Listen, they've done some things offensively. You bring in a DeAndre Ayton, right, improves you defensively. Jake LaRavia actually, I think, is competitive defensively. He's a hustle player.
Yeah,
he's a smart player. I like him. I like him as a reserve rotational player because he plays really, really hard and he's so smart. He comes up with instinctive plays that help your team win that you really can't quantify in the box score, but you're not going to label him as certainly a shutdown or a lockdown defender. I think Gabe Vincent was a guy that he was terrible the first half of the year, particularly with his shooting. I mean, he looked like he had lost all confidence, and he was coming back from an injury, and he really struggled. He played better down the stretch, but clearly this is an upgrade if Marcus Smart is healthy. This is a significant upgrade at those backup guard minutes. So I like it, man. I don't know how much I like the Lakers. I want to see them a little bit. They're one of those teams that I just don't think you have any choice but to reserve judgment. Some of these teams, I feel comfortable in what I'm thinking about. Houston, Denver,
right?
The Clippers. I feel comfortable. Even Minnesota. Like, I kind of know what they are, what they're going to be, what to expect. And, hey, maybe the ceiling's a little higher or maybe the floor's a little lower. You know, that'll play out over time. But I'm pretty comfortable within a certain range who they are. I feel like I don't know what to expect out of the Lakers. I want to see Luka at the start of the year. I want to see what Ayton looks like and how they use him. I want to see what these new guys look like and what they bring. What Marcus Smart brings, what Jake LaRavia brings. So I have a lot of question marks about the Lakers. So I think it's not like you're sitting on the fence. I need to see that product for 20 games at the start of the year to get a better understanding of what all of this really means in terms of the hierarchy of the Western Conference.
And I think the thing about the Lakers is you look at their roster, it's not very deep. And then you start to think about just inevitably through the course of the season, guys come in and out of the lineup. And for me, there's a lot of guys, like if you told me Austin Reeves missed 10 games for something, they're become very thin. If you told us Luka, obviously, even Rui, if he misses a handful of games, your depth just gets so thin. And I think that's one of the big parts of this. And Marcus Smart, if he does have to step into like that high, he's starting and now he's playing all these minutes. I think it helps them. I think it makes their best punch better. But I do wonder if this is a rocky regular season. They won 50 games last year, which is very impressive given the roster and the limitations they had. They won 50 games. I think it's going to be hard for them to repeat that this year just with how thin everything is.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. I think, some of these teams at the top of the West have gotten better, or they are what they are, which is a champion in the case of the Thunder, and they won
Right.
68 games last year. Like, they're not any worse, that's for sure.
Right.
This is going to be a different offseason for them, so we'll see what their approach is and how it affects them. They're young guys, so you think that they'll be okay, but it's still going to be different. It's just you're a champion now. Just you carry yourself differently, you feel differently. Are they as hungry? Do they want to, put something together here over the next 5-6 years to be one of the all-time great teams? That's what their goal is going to be. I don't know if they're going to be able to live up to that. They're also going to have to make decisions on their role players because they just paid their top 3 guys. So a lot. So you're going to have to plug and play now with some of these other guys that were really important to you. And you don't know always that it's going to fit. But other teams clearly have gotten better. Let's see what's up with the Lakers, man. They're an interesting team to me. I think there's just a lot of questions, Adam. And they're going to answer those questions, I think, pretty early in the year. You're going to have a much better idea of this team's relevance. And a lot of it, to be honest, hinges on what Luka Dončić looks like at the start of the year.
True.
One of the things, Adam, you and I have talked about on here, as much as, we've loved Luka, and I particularly have praised Luka when he was in Dallas and some of the things I said and predicted for him. One thing that is true, he has not been on a great regular season team. He just hasn't. Like, his teams have not won 58, 60, 62, 65 games. I mean, he hasn't been on one of those teams in the regular season, as great as a player as he is. Now, they've made a couple really nice runs when he was in Dallas, got to a final, got to a conference final. But those weren't like elite regular seasons. Like, that's what sets the tone. You want to impress me and make me think the Lakers have a real shot in the West? Man, come out of the gate 15-5 with Luka setting the tone every night. Like, right out of the gate, play like an MVP. Not where you're like, oh, he's going to ramp it up as he continues to get into shape. That's, to me, what most of this hinges on. Because if he looks like that at the start of the year, some of these other questions we have right now, you and I are discussing about the role players and their roster and how guys fit. I got news for you. Luka Dončić in top form answers a lot of those questions.
So true.
Let's see if he's going to be there at the start. That's a big question for me.
You said the Lakers are interesting to you. I don't think they're that interesting to me, but that question you just said at the end is. Luka Dončić is so great. He's been able to carry teams, to your point, not to great regular season success, 60 wins or anything like that, but he's been very good. But this does feel like the year where all eyes are on him, the condition he comes into. So I find him interesting, even if I don't necessarily find this Lakers team interesting. Any final thoughts about this Lakers team before we sign off?
No, man, that's about it. We covered about all the Lakers are going to get right now in the offseason. Man, that's all they get. The way they went out last year, playing a bunch of guards against Rudy Gobert. How can you forget that, man? It's like, whoa. It's tough to have like a super positive image of them. But look, they listen, you can't certainly lack their effort in trying to address some of the needs. They needed size. They got a very talented big. They needed more toughness. They added Marcus Smart, Jake LaRavia. Both of those guys fit into that category. So for me, now it all rests on Luka. I know what LeBron is. I know what Austin Reeves is. I'm not worried about those two guys. Luka has a pendulum, man. That pendulum has to swing in a certain direction, and they can really look intriguing if he looks different at the start. If it's the same sort of typical start to the year for him, I'm going to have a hard time, man, convincing myself that this is a team that could be in the mix for a conference final run. And that's really what we're talking about. Who can be the last team standing? We've made strong cases for the Clippers, Houston, and Denver. I don't know that I feel as well about LA because I need to see Luka Dončić coming out of the summer.
Yeah. All right. We have one super chat, James. What are the people saying? Lorenzo says, hot take. If KD meets the minimum requirement for games played, he will finish top 5 in MVP voting. I would say top 3, but I'm a Rockets fan. I actually like this take, Legs. I could see it. He's the star of the show. No,
I could see it too. And he's got something going for him here that could really help him if he's healthy. He's going to put up similar numbers he has his entire career. That's who Kevin Durant is. The difference is going to be like, we're now looking at this team that was so interesting and we had so much admiration for in Houston because of this young talent, how good they were defensively, how tough they were, right? Amen Thompson, a rising star. Now they had one thing they didn't have. If Kevin Durant answers that and gives them 25, 26, 28 a night as their best player and to go with that defense, and it's translating into wins where now, you're at midseason and Houston is a 2 seed or hell, they might be a 1 seed if OKC takes their foot off the gas a little bit, like halfway through the year. Kevin Durant's going to thrust himself into that conversation, and he's probably going to stay there the rest of the season. So I think this is a really good take because his talent lends itself directly to what Houston needs the most. So it's almost this perfect pairing if it works. Yeah. That remains to be seen. They've got to go out and play the games and make it happen. But if they do, I agree. I think it's a great take. Kevin Durant getting himself into top 5 MVP consideration.
And I could see a lot of game winners, fourth quarters, just the ball's going to be in his hands and late in the games. And so you win 55, 56, 57 games. You're the closer. You're the leading scorer. I think that's a strong enough case for you to be at least in the conversation, which is what that comment was about.
And who else, real quick, who else will get there? The guy we were just talking about, if he looks the way we just said, Luka Dončić.
For sure.
Luka Dončić has a lot to restore this year. Like, this is the restore tour. If that's where if he was a band, it'd be called the restore tour. He's got to get back and remind people like what he was at his best. If he looks the way that we said he's capable of, potentially start of the year on him, and the Lakers jump out of the gate, Luka Dončić will thrust himself in that conversation as well.
Yeah, I think restore tour of Luka Dončić. You would go see that show opening for AC/DC. I hear this year.
I'd go see that, man. Oh, you put him as an opening act. Wow. Wow, that's a headline. That's bulletin board material for Luka. He's the opener. Oh, man.
There's nothing wrong with the opener, Legs. We already know you leave early for football games. Do you not show up till after the opening act for concerts?
It totally depends, man. Like we just went to, a year and a half ago, went to a concert, and the headliner was Def Leppard. But you know who opened, I think, or vice versa? Journey. Yeah, okay, yes. Two all-time iconic bands. I'm going to go see both.
You're going to catch both.
In the AC/DC, they had an opener I wasn't too familiar with. So, yeah, we stayed outside and had some cocktails and listened to the opener.
There you go, man. Late to arrive, early to leave. The story of Tim Legler.
The Restore Tour. I love it. With Luka's picture on it. I might get that T-shirt printed up.
Everybody, we are reduced now to one time a week on this show over the next couple weeks. We will be going a little bit more frequently once Eurobasket. We're going to get everybody here into Eurobasket. You're going to have some big name NBA players playing in that one, including my guy, Nikola Jokic. So that will be a very fun tournament to cover, and we're going to be covering it here later on. But for now, off season, we'll be down to once a week. Everybody, thanks. Hit that like button on the way out. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll see you next week.
Silly like the mayor.